My name is Jenny Bell. I live on a farm near Bredelben. I've had a studio here for over 30 years and I've been making work that fits into that farm life. It's stimulated me and given me a framework. I work in charcoal. I've always done a lot of drawing. For a long time I didn't know how to translate my experience here with oil paint, but eventually I broke through and I could, but I still go out with charcoal. It's a very immediate medium. I also work in 3 dimensions, and I use a variety of saws and acrylic vinyl paint, and that stimulates me in a completely different way. The body of work I'm working on at the moment is a commission to focus on the crucifix, and that's taken me back to a series of work I did in the early 2000s in the graveyards. I've always been interested in the way the Christian faith has influenced the way we manage land. Whether you have that faith or not, the imprint of the thinking behind the Bible is written all over the Australian landscape. And I've come to have a much deeper understanding of land management in my 30 years on the farm. I've come to, I think the word now is regeneration, that our job as farmers is not to sustain the land, but it is to regenerate. So we have to change our thinking quite a lot, and that's had an influence on how I approach making a painting. And I was surprised to be asked to go back to this subject, but it's always good to be thrown a problem from outside, and that sent me back to the graveyards and to the Christian iconography that is dotted around our landscape. I've always thought about people who were early settlers and probably didn't have a lot of spare cash or time, but they made the time to build a little church and to respectfully bury their dead. And that interests me, So it's kind of a delight to go back and just see what the oil paint does, because each material demands very different things from you. And oil paint seems to ask me to, in some way, try to reflect the landscape I'm in, and so the tones are much more muted. I obviously have to select. I'm always out in the landscape. I don't make work when I'm doing this, working with oils. I'm in the landscape. I take my paints to the subject, and so I have to edit and select what I'm looking at. And you get into after a couple of hours painting, these decisions are all unconscious, and you're often surprised by what you've done. There's just a state of, when it's going really well, almost reverie, and you're just there and you're just making these unconscious decisions, and then you come home and you put it up and you think, gee, that's a shock. And then you live with it for a little while, and you might take that work out again, and sometimes move forward with it, sometimes backwards, but it's a game of responding to the landscape, the work in front of you, and just letting it happen. Trying to shut down that critical mind. Just let it happen. And so when someone throws you a request, a commission, it's very exciting. You just do it, and you do it and do it and do it until you think you've done it. And I like that. I've always enjoyed, I was part of the Earth Canvas project, which threw me a very big challenge recently. And it was fascinating, it was terrifying, but it revealed to me a whole other dimension to my work. And it brought together regenerative farming and, a fairly long vocation as an artist. And I was really shocked by the outcome, and that's exciting. I think people often say, do you wait to be inspired? Look, you can't keep sheep off food and water and expect them to thrive. It's the same in making a painting. You can't just leave it in a dry pat. You've got to be at it all the time. And sometimes physically that's not possible. My mind is never far away from what I'm doing in my studio. I can be sitting at a Christmas lunch and my brain is thinking. I'm not proud of that, but that's just the reality we live with. It's not like an ordinary, you don't knock off in the way some vocations allow you to. And sometimes that is taxing. At other times it's incredible to be involved in something so all-consuming and life-enhancing. If I'm lucky enough to travel, I've got friends all over the world in those galleries because I know this language and, people who were painting 400 years ago speak to you. That's a very rich dialogue, and I am so grateful to be involved in that. And they keep you going. Looking at art has meant so much to me, has fed me in so many ways, and it affects the way I make work. And if it does that to me, it does it to others. Keep going. Just keep doing it. It's important. And sometimes it's not recognised as such, but, that's the world we live in. Keep at it. Yeah.